Okay, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Even those who I
Hello.
see already online look great. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the 2021 Black History Month from a Poet's Point of View, presented by the Office of the Poet Laureate of Prince George's County. And we are excited to be sharing poetry and more. My name is Sister Joy, and today's celebration of Black History is presented by the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council with support and in partnership with Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, the Prince George's County Memorial Library System, and the Nora Roberts Foundation. We are very grateful for their support, and we know that there are many, many more who are out there embracing and celebrating Black history and poetry. So, thank you all for joining us. I'm just excited because today we have three phenomenal poets, spoken word artists, authors, literary giants. And I'm speaking of, before I get into naming names, I do want everybody to know that this is going to be a 2-hour virtual poetry event, and it will encompass sharing of poetry and also discussions by the poets who are featured, so that you can learn about, so that our viewing audience can learn about what's happening in the minds and in the hearts of those poets who have reached that upper tier where they are called upon as literary giants in the circles that poetry includes. So, with all of that being said, I want to welcome Diane Wilbon Parks, Brenda Bunting, and Seth Washington. It is absolutely my honor and privilege to have each of these guest poets with us to share certainly their poetry, but also let us delve deep inside to find what makes them tick. Yeah,
Hmm.
we want to know what it is that allows them to take that interest, peak it to the point of curiosity, well, carry it even further to the point of passion, because that's what you really have to be a great poet. You have to have passion for the word. And the spoken word, the written word, is something that we are going to be having some fun with today. So, let's see. Of course, Black History Month every year has a theme, which is established by the Association for the Society of African American History and Life, ASALA. And this year, the theme has been established: Black Family, Representation, Identity, and Diversity. Now, as each of our poets discuss their poetry, to the degree possible, we want them to share how important they feel that poets address this in their poetry. And each of you that's with us on this Zoom event today, ask yourselves, how does your poetry do this? How does your poetry connect our culture? A major part of our culture in the Black community is family. So, since our conversation is going to be one of discussion as well as poetry presentation, the format will be one whereby I direct one or two questions to each of the guest poets. And then, after they present their poems, um, the guests who are with us online, and that is you, our audience, we're asking that you post any questions that you may have in the Zoom chat. Now, that will allow you to be a part of this experience, this literary experience. So each poet will answer maybe one to two chat questions to the degree that time permits. So I think it's time for us to get off and running. Our first poet will be Seth Washington. Now, let me find a little bit about Seth that I can share with you to let you know a little bit about who he is. Now, Seth Washington, for writer, vocal artist, and master of ceremonies, Seth Eric Washington. The media influences of radio and magazine touched him early in life, evolving within his soul a journalistic view of seeing. This is the aesthetic lens he applies in celebrating culture and legacies that uplift through words written, spoken, and sometimes aligned with his photographic imagery. Believing also that his gifts are endowed by the Creator, Seth Washington uses his artistic experiences, rather his artistic expressions, to acknowledge the foundational resources of love, joy, and peace. Now, I think that gives us a pretty good snapshot of just who Seth Washington is. So, Seth, could you give us your first poem? And first of all, Seth, please
Yes.
allow me to say welcome. I apologize. Welcome to From a Poet's Point of View. So, having officially welcomed you, and I don't mean to be inept in what I do, but please, Seth, please share your first poem.
Sister Joy, you are anything but inept, and I'm so happy to be here today. And many thanks to you and the Prince George's County Office of the Poet Laureate for having me in this great company that I'm in today. So this first piece I'm going to share is entitled "The Residue of Pomp and Splendor," and it goes as follows: Convention Hall, that cavernous chameleon, showcasing both basketball rivalry and cotillion waltzes. First I watched, then I danced. The steady beat of the boardwalk walking, echoing rhythms of gleeful children seeking fulfillment and amusement's great escape. Nearby, parents stand ready to finance delight's next fancy. The northern sunbathers' twilight stroll and one last chance at a prize and maybe some frozen custard. The parkway must wait. This poem, yes.
No, go right ahead. Tell us about the poem.
It is a reference to my childhood growing up on the Jersey Shore. I am from a town called Neptune, New Jersey. And right next to it is, right next to the town is a beachside area called Asbury Park. And so as a child growing up, the suburban New Jersey was very much like growing up and living in Prince George's County. But what was also great was that in the summertime, we were very close to the seaside. And so summers were amazing. Now, are you able to hear me, Sister Joy?
Actually, we're having a bit of difficulty. I can understand you, but there is some technical deficiency. It may be that if you shut down your video, your audio may be more, more clear. We'll try that.
Okay, I just shut the video down
Okay.
and turned it back on. Am I sounding any better?
No, it's still sounding. I mean, we can
You want me to shut
understand.
the video down all the way?
Yeah, just try it.
Okay. Great. There we go.
Oh yes,
Am I doing better?
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great. And so from the family perspective, my parents were what you could consider a part of the Great Migration. They're both from the South. They met in the military, and they ended up purchasing a home on the Jersey Shore because my father was stationed at the nearby base on Fort Monmouth. And so they were not necessarily the first, or this was not the first generation of African Americans living at the Jersey Shore. But at that time, in the 60s and early 70s, there was an additional influx of African Americans living at the Jersey Shore. And so this represented also coming at that time of integration just beginning to start. Then this represented a new era of what life at the Jersey Shore would be like. And it was a nice life, and I was fortunate to be a part of it.
Okay. Well, I thank you for sharing your very personal poem about early years and family, and that is very much in keeping with our theme today. So thank you for that. Let's see, can we get one more poem from you before we move to our second presenter? And we want to keep in mind that our audience is invited to post questions in the chat that we may be able to present to you as we proceed through today's Black History celebration. So, poem number 2 from Seth Washington.
Okay, so poem number 2 is called Housewarming, and it references that aspect of the family diaspora that I am involved in, those family members who grow up and don't get married, but maintain strong connectivity with the family and the community. And so this is called Housewarming. Ahmad Jamal and Whitney Houston tiptoed through big speakers. I reminisce about sweet cakes, green peas in a smooth cream, and big plates of chicken jerked and fried. It was laid back, but it wasn't undercover. God was inside and out back. And out front, a welcoming glow of love beckoned passersby who probably was wondering, is this the house they talked about? Solid. Again, the name of that poem is Housewarming.
Okay, okay. So we have a strong sense of family in your poetry. Thank you very much for those 2 offerings. Let me ask one question. What prompted you to write this particular poem with regard to the backstory in that housewarming?
So the gentleman who purchased the home, his name is Michael. He was a friend of mine, and he grew up in the DC area, right outside of DC in Virginia. And in our young adult years, he began to express how he desired to purchase a home in Washington, DC. And I recall some days we might even be traveling by car on the way to see a movie, and he would pass by a home that would catch his eye. And sometimes he may even stop and back up and say, "Money, one day I'm going to buy a home just like that." And so the power of dreaming was really strong upon him. And one day he absolutely purchased a house in the Capitol Hill area of Washington, D.C. And so I had the fortunate opportunity to be at the housewarming, and I took some photographs of the event. And after I got the pictures back, and also based on my experience at the event, I was inspired to write some words.
Okay, okay. Now talk a little bit about that writing process. When okay, it was clearly inspired by a personal event, an event that you were a part of. But for every poet, you have to decide about the voice, the approach, the structure of the poem. Can you talk to us bring our audience into what that journey was like as you crafted that particular poem. Can you just elucidate a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Visuals heavily influence how I write. And I like to say that photography not only influenced my writing, but it led me to writing.
Okay.
And so, but with that visual sense, then I find myself using descriptive words that puts the reader in the location and in the midst of what was being experienced at that time. And so that has always been a very organic aspect of how I write.
Okay. Okay. Let's see, I'm looking in the chat and there's a question that says, is this the house they talked about? And then there's the word solid. This is Janique who is asking that question.
Yes. So yes, that's the last line of the poem. And that was a element of spirituality.
Okay.
That there was love emanating from the moment, and also love emanating from the faith that he had, that he one day would purchase a house.
Okay.
And so in that moment, people passing by would notice that love.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think our audience has gotten to know not just your poetry, but a little bit about you. And Seth, can you please include in our chat how our guests, how our audience can be in touch with you? And if there's a link to perhaps an upcoming activity or event that you want our audience to know about, please put that in the chat too. We want to avail you to the community through this today's virtual event. So we want to make sure that each of our poets, each of our guest poets are providing follow-up connection by email or website or however it is that you prefer to be contacted after today's discussion. So thank you so much, Seth Washington. And
Thank you.
Very happy to learn a little bit more about you, and hopefully we'll be seeing you around the campus, as they say here in Prince George's County, the virtual campus of poetry. So keep writing and keep us posted. Are there any books yet on your profile?
Not at this time. Okay. However, I am working on a book of poems and photographs.
Okay, poetry. Well, we understand the photography would be in there. That's great. That's great.
Yes.
Will there be pairing of poetry and photography?
Yes, there will be.
Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, well, Seth, thank you so much. And if our guests have questions, even as we proceed to the next poet, please do put those questions in the chat for Seth so that he can follow up with you. Okay. Well, Seth.
Thank you, Sister Joy. Thank you very much.
And please re-engage your video since you won't be speaking. We don't have a problem seeing you. We want to make sure that people know, maybe some who come in late will at least see who you are and be able to follow up based on the chat and the image that will be presented here. So
absolutely.
Okay. Now we have our next presenter. Okay. We're going to move on to Brenda Bunting. Yes, Brenda Bunting will be our next poet that will first share. Well, Brenda, why don't you share one poem and then give us a little bit of the backstory behind the poem after you have presented it, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Sister Joy. There's a couple of things I can do. I kind of took my two poems and put them together as one.
Okay.
So I could read the entire piece, or I could break it up into one too. You just let me know what you want me to do.
Well, because we do want to discuss each poem, let's first start with one poem and we'll take it from there. So
Okay.
again, welcome to From a Poet's Point of View. And thank you so much for accepting the invitation to be a part of this Black History moment.
Oh, I'm very excited to be a part, and always happy to spend time with you. I remember we did the program together last February, and so I really enjoyed spending time with you there on was cable channel 76.
Yes.
Yes.
CTV. CTV.
Yes. Yes, definitely for your program. And so I'll go ahead and but I do want to say this before I start, that I know Seth mirrors me exactly. I grew up in Neptune, New Jersey.
Oh.
My dad was retired from Fort Monmouth. We moved there because my parents were military, and I know about Asbury Park Beach, Belmar Beach, everything that he talked of just brought back such wonderful reminiscent memories. And so I met him maybe about 4 or 5 years ago at a poetry set called Raising the Bottom. And when I talked to him, I was like, did we meet in Neptune?
All right.
I just thought it was so phenomenal that I'm here in PG County. You know what I mean? And meet him there. So,
okay.
So the first piece, right now, I don't currently have a title for it. And like I said, I'll just go straight into it. I am called by the name of Brenda Bunting, 4th generation American descendant of slavery, ADOS, on my father's side, and 5th generation on my mother's side. My lineage evolved from a stolen legacy of an African heritage that was ripped away. Their language, their practices, their customs, their way of living. I stand here before you now, picking up the pieces in between the broken spaces. A Black tribeswoman, a foundational Black American, FBA, part of a unique and people peculiar, because there is no homeland for the kidnapped and no land of return for her children. So this is our land. We stand in the muck and mire of betrayal, pushing back against the branding and stereotyping that has been leveled against us. The degrading history of names we have been called is a shame. Negro in every shade and variation, to house and field inward, to 3/4 of a person, subhuman, monkey, ape, gorilla, alligator bait, jungle bunny, Ansha mama, black mammy, pickaninny, tar baby, Sambo, coon, Uncle Tom, step and fetch it, Oreo, boy, wannabe, jigaboo, blackie, darky, shine, spook, nappy-headed, please stop. The feet of Black marchers protest, walking years of miles to reclaim the shredded dignity that was turned by the economic driver of slavery. The system of oppression that steamrolled people of color into working chattel, smashing and crushing the hearts of minds of dreamers and intellectuals and lovers. These are the pieces I and others are picking up. Breaking free of the chains of your definitions, we are in Black remission. White cancer tries to return, bullying into places unearned. Make America great again is nothing more than resurrected sin. No other group have bodies so powerful and recognized as highly prized commodities desired by the masses. It was a crime to read. It was a crime to be free, scorned, and then secretly dated. Our culture appropriated, while we are openly hated, but copied gesture for gesture. We are not your caricature. I heard a calling of beloved by Miss Iyanla Vanzant and Toni Morrison. We will be loved by Black women and lifted up by Black men like Kuta Kinte lifting up his child and roots. Black babies reaching for the glory of the sunshine to light the world on fire. We are standing upon a great legacy of resilience, Never be ashamed of their survival brilliance. We are called celebration, victorious affirmation, African American new title graduation. Our descriptions and adjectives hold fascination because I am and you are a queen and her mate is a king. He is a man, a brother, a boss, a cool cat, a homie, a reverend, doctor, baller, and all that. A champ protecting his aunties, checking out the little cutie pies, waiting on a shorty. We got caramel honey gold mines, sister girls, little princesses, sweet babies, and red bones. The fellas and the mamas know we are family. Sister Sledge sung, I got all my sisters in me. But the goon squad is out to let everyone know how much Black lives don't matter. We tired of dying, having somebody's mama always crying, and the police looking the other way while the bad ones are lying. The goon squad has fallen through the floors of morality that gives way to the abyss of atrocities they impose on Black bodies. And who is it that they protect and serve? I think the slogan that has a lot of nerve, the shrieking vibration is a menace we all feel. But I recognize I am still breathing. My chest is heaving, inhaling still shots of horrible moments as I press play. I live 100 years in a few hours. The ancients are calling. We remember. They are whispering prayers from the grave. There is outrage outside beyond my comprehension, beyond my calling. On January 6th, less than a month ago, the confined escape sanity, breeding new demands that come out of the old spirit of the Confederacy. They are the true disrespecters of the high-flying symbol, the burning ethic cleansing that seeps through every stripe of the American flag, and Black bodies hang on every star, fading into the blue, and no one sees their blood, only the red stripes on every replica, and no Black shows, only lines of white. The crazed and the raging demanded the insurrection of 2021. There is no nectar in their blooming. Everything is dry and dying. But I am alive and exhaling. I recognize I am breathing.
Oh, wow. I'm just
Somebody is beating or something. Do you
yeah,
hear that?
I do. I thought it was you moving your paper or something.
No, it's not me. It keeps going on. I don't know what it is. It's like somebody's typing.
If I could get whomever it is that's beating or creating a rhythm on their keypad or computer to please disengage or block your audio. Thank you. It seems to have stopped now. So yeah,
It's really distracting.
It was.
But we worked through it. We worked.
Yeah, and you were totally audible. So that was not preventing, but it was something that I thought it was coming from you. But anyway, phenomenal poem. You had lists, you had litanies that both the exceptional and the disparaging, both of which were very emotional to hear and receive in my spirit. What was it that caused you to, we'll go with the disparaging roster of names that are attributed often to Black folk by those who are not in our camp of support. What was it that allowed your spirit to just put all of those words right in? I mean, it was like a bullet that wouldn't stop penetrating. What was it that made you decide, I'm going to do this? I'm going to actually include this litany.
It was very painful, Sister Joy. Let me say that first. This is us. This is our history, and you feel those things. And so I do want to say, and I think this is very important in what we're talking about with Black history and the Black family. And what I see more and more and more, and what I just feel is so critical, is our history is disappearing. And what I mean by that is you go out on the internet and I'll look for stories that I read about or something I heard about or researched just 10 years ago, and it's altered slightly, or it's gone, or it's whitewashed. And because I think it's so important as us as poets that we have a responsibility as poets, as artists, really as history recorders, to write these things down and to put them in books. Yeah. Because the web is a fluid machine, and anybody can go on Wikipedia and change something. You can log in and say you have some kind of updated information about a story. And so what we want to have is, in a sense, a permanent record. And when I was thinking about this, and when I was thinking about how important it is to preserve our history just exactly as it was, so people do understand what we had to overcome, people do understand who our ancestors were. I know that a lot of times in our desire to not deal with unpleasantries, we want to push that stuff aside, but those things have absolute value. And it's so important for us to recognize and to see the things that we have overcome. So you know, the 2020 pandemic, of course, gave everybody a lot of time to think, whether they wanted to or not, because of the imposed isolation. And I really began to just focus and think about, what do I feel like my individual role as a poet and as an artist and as a history recorder is exactly. And so it felt, seeing what happened with George Floyd, we're looking right at it and seeing all the conversation around who he was, not what was done to him.
Right.
We witnessed a murder. Yes. And people started talking about, oh, well, you know, he was this and this was his backstory. What? This man was murdered by a police officer. He was unarmed. So did he deserve that? Because what? So that really had such a very strong impact on me. Very strong.
Well, that's a backstory that many of us relate to. And I commend you for taking on the monumental task of capturing our story as Black folk in America. This is a daunting experience, let alone one that attempts to convey to persons perhaps outside of our experience just what this is like from a very intimate perspective. So I thank you for that. With regard to yeah, that was quite a lengthy poem. Was it because of the gargantuan issue that you were presenting that you opted to not break it into multiple poems, or, you know, 1, 2, 3, you know, how we oftentimes as poets will do snapshots and convey a poem in a particular format that's more bite-sized, kind of to say. But what is it that allowed you, that prompted you to present this as a smorgasbord? I mean, it's all there. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, I wanted to, I tacked on the end part about the insurrection. And so I just felt like it gave from the beginning where I talk about who I am and the generation and the historical perspective, to say, now here, I went back 5 generations, and now we have an insurrection in 2021. And although you can look at individual accomplishments of someone like Amanda Gorman, who was phenomenal, by the way, and
Yay. Pause for the cause. Yay. Yes, thank you.
2036, I'll vote for her. And Kamala Harris, certainly. I mean, look, but it's like you have this huge division, because it's like we're taking these steps forward, but it's like it's in quicksand. Yeah. So many times, you know, and it's like we're moving forward, and it's like, well, how far are we really getting in this quicksand? And so that's the reason why I ended the part on about the end. But certainly that was just a snapshot, Sister Joy. It doesn't even begin to give justice to the immense, just really huge, immense, expanse of our history. It is far and wide, and it's definitely not something I celebrate every day, not on Black History Month.
Okay, absolutely. 365, 24/7. Absolutely. I want to make sure that you're capturing some of the comments, legacy of resilience, all that. Carmel, honey, gold mine, black bodies hang on every star. Fantastic. Yes, we are history recorders as poets. We absolutely are. And of course, phenomenal, phenomenal, Brenda. I think that's perfectly encapsulated in all caps. Love it, love it. And Brenda, you are a powerhouse poet. I'm reading, quoting. Brenda, you are a powerhouse poet and orator. You are so amazing. Love what you are saying. Thank you. And that is from one of your fellow featured poets. So you have accolades from all around. And
Thank you.
I stand in the midst. Absolutely. One of the lines when they are whispering prayers from the grave, that just touched me. That line is like, oh, yes. And then the reality is we do have to pray our way through this. That's our most powerful weapon. And I perceive it as such. So Brenda Bunting, thank you so very much for sharing what you have today. Make sure that you do, if you're not already done so, put your contact information in the chat so that our guests, our viewers can be in touch with you. Is there any particular project or product that you would like to give a shout out to and tell folks about what's on the horizon, what Brenda Bunting has up her sleeve that we can be looking forward to?
Well, I'm working on my second book of poems, and I just kind of float with what comes up. There always something come up, like what happened today earlier. I placed third in Countercurrent, the literary section for.
Don't breeze over that. Talk about that. This is not
sure. So Countercurrent has a international competition jury for poetry and art, and so
is it strictly online? Is it a magazine? Tell us what.
So they have a gallery in Bethesda, but they're going to be online. They're going to post all of the poetry online. I did a visual piece. Let me see if I can. So this is what it is.
A whole woman. Okay.
Yeah. So what I did was, it's real short. I can go through it if you.
Yeah.
So Countercurrent actually is talking about going against what is currently the norm, or what is currently talked about, or what is tradition. And so I took a piece of different pieces of words, and I put them together in very small phrases. That's what you saw. And so the poem is called Uncompartmentalized. And this is it. A whole woman appears, not broken into bits of mouth, breasts, vagina, not sexualized with tight revealing displays of constriction. She opens her mouth, speaking undiminished intelligence. She reveals her breasts, supplying milk for life. She opens her legs, pushing out another female for the sacrifice. A girl child appears weeping in sorrow, angered already. A mother's constellation, the only soothing. And so the reason why I wrote that poem that way is because of the way that a woman's body is typically objectified as an object of desire, her mouth and her breast and her vagina. But I'm saying with this, a whole woman appears, and she's speaking, and and she's a whole person with intelligence and with thought and with contribution. And her breasts supply life for her child, supply life for the human race, really. And she brings forth life, through that act. So I placed third in that particular event. So I also have, thank you.
Congratulations. Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to be published in a spiritual journal called Soul. I can't remember the name. The name of my poem is Soul and Spirit. I can't remember. I'm sorry, it escapes me the name of the journal. And then I'm going to be published somewhere else as well.
Well, this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
Remember.
Congratulations. Absolutely. We're very happy for you. We're celebrating with you, and certainly as I said, ensure that you have your contact information and any other links or what you'd care to include in the chat. And we want to make sure that people again, remember to post questions in the chat as well. We love the accolades, but we want you to also feel comfortable asking your own questions of the poets, and we can certainly cycle back around if you have questions for poets that have already spoken. So not a problem there. We want to, let's see, with regard to, we have do you have a website, Brenda?
I'm on Facebook as BBB Poet, and then I'm also on Twitter as Freethinker Poet. But I've been working on a website forever. You kind of know how those things go.
Absolutely, yes we do.
Yeah.
Yes we do. Okay.
So did you want me to read the second poem?
Yes, the second poem.
Okay. So this, I kind of tied it together, but I'll go ahead and start with that. Yes. Okay. So I'll just pick up where I left off before. I recognize I am breathing because I love Black and I'm not taking it back. Not just the color, but the people, everything that we are. We are the African diaspora. Record-breaking feats shows our athletic hustle. These outlines of Black with defined sinews and muscles. We are languages, cultures, traditions, and religions. We have heart and soul. We are spirits of great vision. I love our mighty melanin. It is flawless. It does not give others the right to be lawless. When you deal with us, you are dealing with a human being. Come a little closer and I will tell you what I mean. We defy limitations, exceed expectations, evoke imagination, blow straight past imitation. We are improvisation, singing and dancing throughout generations. We are an amazing amalgamation of skill, talent, and entertainment. Our genius ability takes the whole world to another level of creation. We cultivate powerful nations. For all good people, we have appreciation. Our compassion and forgiveness, it is legendary. I have never seen anyone stronger. Endure unfairness longer, waiting for silver linings to brighten dark clouds. We understand reverence for the land, respect for all living creatures, not just man. The earth is for living beings everywhere. Know this, without a Black face, there would be no human race. Babies excite our community, the inky depths of innocent eyes, the beautiful soul that lives inside, a little fuzzy-headed crown. I love you because you are me. We thrive in our ability. We define soul and hip. We dance and smoke and sometimes have a little sip. Finding ways to cope gives hard times a sense of hope. You can't keep us down for long. We always come back strong, giving style and flair to everything we do, from our beautiful hair right down to our shoes. What those that disrespect us and our critics lack, they never had the opportunity to embrace Black. But I shall never tire of our history, the history of American descendants of slavery, nor of its retelling.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Brenda. You truly uplift our people in such a beautiful and eloquent way. I thank you for sharing this second piece, which again, you put it out there. I mean, uh, one line that stood out to me: our melanin does not give others the right to be lawless, and that seems to be at issue. It really does. That's
Yes.
the core of everything. And
Yes.
so, your ability to capture the essence of reality is a strong suit for you. And well, I thank you for sharing. Let's see if there are questions or comments over here. Tremendous, Brenda, as always. Congratulations. Thank you for your words and wisdom. And that's very much what I believe. Okay, there's snaps happening over there, snaps happening in the chat. So, absolutely. So, Brenda, with regard to the future for you, you said there's a website that's coming. Um,
Right.
Publication already for award-winning poetry is happening and continuing. We know that you're going to be coming out with your own book soon because you've talked about not just online. Don't just put it online. Put it in a
That's right.
absolutely. So
Yes.
thank you very much. Yeah, you've got fans in the chat. You've got fans. So thank you, Brenda. And I look forward to hopefully hearing from poets that have been a part of today's session and heard what you've shared and hopefully connected with you in the future. We want to build your fan base. Each of you that are with us today help to let the community know just how powerful our poets are. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sister Joy.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we do have a third featured poet today, and I'm speaking of a poet that I do know rather well. I'm speaking of Brenda. Brenda is who I just featured. Diane Wilbon Parks. And let's see, can I find some information about Diane? Um, there's so well. Why don't I just read it from here? And Diane Wilbon Parks is a visual poet and artist. She has written two poetry collections and a children's book. She is the founder of The Right Blend, a culturally diverse poetry circle, and she's been recognized as a 2020 Prince George's County Poet of Excellence. Now she's celebrated the permanent installation of one of her poems and artwork as a permanent sign at the Patuxent Research Refuge, North Tracer. So let's see, Diane, her poetry has been widely featured and highlighted nationally and internationally. She's been a long-standing literary advocate and leader in the poetry community. Her poetry is included in the international anthology, Singing in the Dark. And she's also included in the 43rd and 44th anniversary of Grace Cavaleri's The Poet and the Poem of the Library at the Library of Congress. I'm going to stop there and welcome our third featured poet, Diane Wilbon Parks, to join us. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you so much, Sister Joy. This is an honor and a treat to read alongside Brenda and Seth. I am so happy to be here.
Okay. Well, Diane, as you've observed the pattern, the flow of what we're doing today, we're excited to await your offering of two poems. If you would start with just one, and after you share the poem, feel free to go ahead and share a bit about the backstory for that particular piece that you're starting with. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to present a phenomenal poet of excellence right here in Prince George's County, Bowie, I might add. And we're going to hear her first poem, after which she'll share a bit about it. Diane, the floor is
Thank
yours.
you. The title of this poem is The Courage to ask why. A symposium of loss that silenced the will to introspection, that calls the wilderness of hearts to love, to behave, to unearthen what winters it to empty. Theirs is a brown that keeps splitting into death, where it hollows the living into graveside song. Theirs is a lust for life that leaps off lips into a taunt that links them to brown skin. They will come towards a single thread apiece. They will come towards a teaspoon of hope. They will come towards love in their brief life, but only as long as air leans in and out of lungs, only as long as crowded guns stop shouting and plunging into brown skin. Only when every American, every culture can stand and walk in the worn out shoes and lives of Black people will the world begin to understand and experience what it means to live as a question, to live without certainty, to live with invisible shackles, in constant fear of being a victim of extreme police brutality or murder, to live without freedom, without protection, without justice, without change. What makes the heart so impenetrable that it no longer examines itself to empathy? What happens to chamber its narrow so thin that it no longer understands the very basic constructs of love, that it empties out the will of introspection and the courage to ask why? So this poem for me is in response to so many things that was happening at once. Actually, this precipitated for me after George Floyd's death and Breonna Taylor and so many more. And I thought to myself, what could I do to contribute to African Americans, the family, the mother, the father, the sister, the brother? This to me, this poem really asks every person who hears it to ask yourself, if you don't understand it, put yourself in that person's situation, that place, and say to yourself, do you really have the courage to ask yourself, to have some introspection and compassion for what is happening? There should not be color here. I don't understand when everybody's watching the same thing on television, seeing a murder take place in front of us, and there's polarization. There should not be. Right and wrong does not have a color. It should never have a color.
Yes.
And so what I what I ask to every person, I would ask that every person have some introspection, have the gumption to ask yourself, why am I not feeling empathy? I think every person needs to approach that question, not from a color spectrum, but from the spectrum of your heart.
Yes.
And what is right or wrong.
Yes.
And that is the reason why I feel that this poem definitely connects to the family. I think it definitely connects to Black history because we've been here before. And that is the reason why I wrote it.
Well, thank you for writing it, and thank you for selecting it as one of your offerings today. I'm a huge fan of your work, so I won't act like I'm just becoming aware. But your word mastery is so powerful. One of the things that I made note of, only when the world, and then I said, well, to live as a question. Oh my gosh, that really is, we are, and to with invisible shackles, they just won't let go. And this, at least at this time in this nation, there are those who would not want them to be released. But we are ever faithful and believe from on high that things are changing, and we are doing, certainly as poets, we're doing our part. And what you're doing by documenting and sharing and explaining and conveying and appealing, all of the things that you're doing, appealing to humanity, really. That's the point of it not being the issue of color, but the issue of humanity. Thank you for that beautiful poem, that very real poem that calls to question anyone who does not have a heart for understanding that this time must end, where America is split on issues that are so superficial. Yes, they do go back generations. Yes, there was a civil war. Yes, there are Black folks and white folks. But the reality of it is we are all God's children, and there is much at stake if we don't turn this around. So I thank you for sharing that first poem. Let's see, there's some things in the chat that I hope you've had a chance to glance at. Certainly, evidently someone's following you. They say 2 days in a row of Diane's artistry. Great, looking forward to it. So thank you for that, Catrice. Pablo is with us. Welcome, Pablo, with the Arts Council. And you know what, I'm going to go back before we're through today, because I was remiss in not sharing Brenda Bunting's bio. I leave it to me to get carried away, but I'll share her bio. I promise, Brenda. I apologize for that. But let's see. Looking only when the world can walk in the worn out shoes, Black skin. Excellent line. Yes. And what it is, somebody else also picked up on what it is to live as a question. Again, very poignant phrases that certainly resonate in the Black community. And if folks don't get it, then I encourage them to get your books because you do bring it to the front and bring it with power and eloquence. You're not hitting anyone over the head. You're hopefully touching folks in their heart, and that's what I love about your poetry. So Deborah, snaps from Deborah Smith. Yeah, thank you, Deborah. So again, Diane, make sure that you include your contact information in the chat, and we know the backstory for that particular poem because you shared it as you discussed, what prompted you to write that poem. But with regard to your second offering, do you have another poem that you can share with us today?
Yes, and many of you, and I even read this poem last evening, have heard this poem. You've heard it before, but I think it resonates for today because the theme is the family. And I like to say that this poem certainly came from our visit. And when I say our, I'm referring to the Voices of Woodlawn. Our visit to the plantation there in Fairfax, Virginia, which is Woodlawn. And so the title of this poem is The Inherited Journey. I look across fields that flung purple journeys, heavy with sound. Then I go back to the fields of my mind, desperate to see, but come up empty. I am here where you were, where you plucked the earth, where your whole body was fractionalized and demoralized, where your stood was bent, your fullness emptied. I reach inside your footprints and fingerprints, but the earth has covered you in thick green grass. I know that you are still here because you are pulling me, and the will of your spirit will not let go. I hear your whispers still wailing. My bones crackle like wood burning. The sparks that have spun up are raw. I feel you rattling in my spirit, your bones beating, threading into tattered stories. But the blood is still sealed with the blood of Jesus, never broken. I am from the leaves and the trees of my people, from the eyes and the forgiving hearts of my people. I'm from the songs and the hopes and the dreams and the will of my people. I'm from the trials and the tribulations and the forget-me-nots of my people, from the hands of pickers, growers, sowers, builders, diggers, cleaners, cookers, fetchers, leaders, thinkers, doers, believers. All are my people. I am kept by the field of my mind's eye, where the field is forever becoming clear, and the story of my people will reap a harvest from then to now, from as far back as oceans decide, as up close as 40 acres, to the droplets of rain that dances in between the songs of rivers of hallelujahs to God's everlasting love and favor. I am the footprint, the voice of the whispers of long ago, that spirits the will to fill the hollowed out stories of my people.
Oh my gosh. I hear it every time, and every time it hits me brand new. Thank you, Diane. Oh my goodness. Can I say that you are a poet whose ancestral connection will never be severed? It's so strong. It is just incredible what you do. And the fact that I clearly it was by divine invitation that you landed at that plantation to even more so than you would had you not, because you will always connect with the ancestors. That's you're a portal, and that's clear. But to actually have gone to that place, I am the footprint. Oh my gosh, this is I'm literally feeling chills as I even reflect on what you just shared. Diane, is that poem in any publication yet?
Not yet. And as a matter of fact, Sister Joy, I am working on my third poetry collection, and this poem will be part of that collection. And it's a tribute really to my heritage, my mother. She's going to be included, all of those poems of her living, and everything that she's been to me even after her death. The Everything is very clear to me. It's almost as if these poems, and I was supposed to be there at Woodlawn. I was supposed to be there because, having lived in Georgia, my for during my childhood years and teenage years, I suppressed a lot of what I saw. I did not want to take it in. And as a matter of fact, when I was writing poetry very early and reading poetry, I never really wrote poems of witness or interpretation for our ancestors. I never did until I went to Woodlawn, and the door is open, the gate is open, everything is open, and I welcome it.
It was freed, absolutely. Uh, for someone who clearly growing up in the South, you had witnessed much. And for you to not have addressed that, and yet to be a poet, I would say that the experience of having been invited to Woodlawn was something that was necessary for you to release those shackles. Uh,
Yes, Sister Joy. Let me say this. I don't mean this in any other way, but respectfully, there was a slave, someone enslaved inside me without voice, did not want to give voice until I drove into the driveway there and coming. And it just was so strange how Lady Di and I arrived at the same time. It was just amazing. And I was crying because it felt as if I was greeted by our ancestors. And it's, for them, I could tell the story. But for me, I had suppressed it after going into the Air Force and being in England and being in these careers that I was a minority always as an African American female in these, highly demanded positions in corporate America for white males. And so always been a minority, I kind of suppressed some of my longings to write this way. And wow, am I forever grateful to Hiram
Floodgates,
for
yeah.
inviting me to
Yeah.
do this.
And for those that have not yet been so blessed, if ever you receive the invitation from Diane Wilbon Parks to attend a reading of the Woodlawn, tell them about the series because it's ongoing. Am I correct? There will be continue to be more.
As a matter of fact, thank you for the question. I'm going to put in the chat room where we will be next. Okay, you will not believe this, but we are partnering with the staff at Woodlawn. The next reading, they are actually promoting and supporting. So they're sponsoring us on February 25th to do this reading. And we are just enamored because this didn't happen until now. They have a new staff there, and they have been very gracious to welcome us in and to partner with them on many endeavors. But yes, they will be sponsoring the event, next week, actually.
And for those, a little backstory here, Dr. Hiram LaRue was invited to do a residency, I believe, at the Woodlawn Plantation. And in his typically generous gesture, he reached out to several poets, and Diane Wilbon Parks was one who accepted that invitation and gave birth to all of these phenomenal poems that she has been sharing. And if you are able to attend the event that she just spoke of and that she's going to reference, to put the link in the chat, you will experience poetry by Hiram LaRue, by Diane Wilbon Parks, by Lady Di. Who else?
And Patrick Washington.
Washington, yes.
And Cliff is the harmonicist.
Yeah, Cliff Barnier is a musician, and he brings his harmonica to the experience, and I cannot endorse it enough. It is an experience that will change you. It is life altering. So thank you very much, Diane, for sharing your poems and telling us a little bit about what it is. Now, your writing process, let's break it down as far as you as you're in that camp of passionate poet who has a 9-to-5 and has a family. And I mean, you're doing it all. So what is the writing experience like for you? Do you have a schedule of when you do it? Or how do you make it work? Plus you're a visual artist. So, I mean, tell us.
Well, let me say this more than anything. God and I, and we've he's given me this gift, and I will always make sure that he is represented in this beautiful gift. So let me say that the purpose, everything in me is so available to writing. I write at night. I get up early in the morning to write. There is not one day that I have not lived that I have not written. I believe that my air and my reasoning for being here is because of poetry and the art. It lives inside of me, and I cannot allow it to stay. It has to have a place to land. And it is critical for me to be able to give these gifts I absolutely love poetry to so much extent. I feel a little guilty because I am married, but I don't know to who. Maybe I'm only married to poetry at most of my time, but I love poetry so much and I love writing. And I have to say that this is the time that I commune with God. This is the time that is holy for me, very sacred. And I believe when I write a poem, it is a birthing process. I'm in the birthing room with my Lord and Savior. And I think He gives me these incredible thoughts and words and lines. And I think I said last night with Brenda that it's almost like if somebody walks in, you're walking in. You can't do that. This is between me and the Lord and this paper. We can't have anybody in here because it's an intimate moment for me.
Okay. Now, I've been blessed to be in your home, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. Is there a space that you have dedicated that is your oasis for creation? Or do you write just wherever you land that message is upon you? How do you set aside or compartmentalize, since there's so much on your plate? How do you make it work?
Well, the way that I make it work, because you're correct, I am a 9 to 5 IT program manager. And what I do is get up very early. And some mornings I will come into this office, the space that you see. More often than not, it's my bedroom, but um, I have created a space. I'm so excited. You're going to be part of the celebration too. I have created a space in the basement that I had. It's a studio. So I have a new studio that's being created and constructed. But right now it is my bedroom and it is this place. That's where I meet God in this space and in my bedroom. He gives me all these beautiful ideas and dreams. I wake up, we paint. It's he and I together doing this thing. So yeah, I just love it.
Okay. Well, Diane Wilbon Parks, thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing our guests to get inside, to get to hear your poetry, to get to know a little bit about your journey and your upcoming activity. Make sure your contact information is in the chat. The information about your upcoming Woodlawn activity is in the chat. And we want to make sure that folks, I see there is some let's see, have to register to join the Voices of Woodlawn. So the link and everything is on there. Very, very good. So thank you again, Diane Wilbon Parks. Okay.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna, as I said, I was remiss. So we're gonna circle back. We want to do this thing right. Brenda Bunting. I did not share any bio information, even though we got to know her quite well. But let me try to, take this egg off my face. Poet Brenda Bunting is the author of Poems of Love and Violence in Between Life and Death. First and second editions are available on Amazon.com. Now, Brenda is published in numerous publications online and in print, nationally and internationally. She is an insightful poetry workshop facilitator and spoken word artist with a passion for equality and racial, social, and environmental justice. Brenda is an active member of the Prince George's County, Maryland poetry community, and she is a life member of the Kentucky State Poetry Society and is working to complete her next books of poetry. Brenda, can I get you to come back on camera, please? Want to just take this opportunity to let our guests know a little bit about some of the workshops that you do, because that's one of the things that I was very much connected to you when I learned about the workshops. Can you speak about the workshops that you do, Brenda?
Absolutely. So I am a a survivor, and I do a poetry workshop and have been doing it under the sponsoring organization of Survivors Justice Movement there online. And I do it for survivors only of sexual abuse. And a lot of times for survivors, whether, you know, they have, this is, there's all different sorts, let me say it like that. You know, you have one-time incident, you have childhood, you have people who never talked about it or spoke about it before. But the workshop, what it does is it creates a safe space, first of all, for them to feel free to use a creative way of expressing what it is that they feel about their healing journey. And so that is, for me, of paramount importance. We don't want to go back and re-traumatize anyone. This isn't about revisiting and talking about what happened, but instead look at it from the perspective of a survivor, or even if you consider yourself moving to the position of a thriver. And I have them in a lot of times locations that I haven't done one virtually yet, but we would have them in locations that weren't known, just because sometimes a person could be trying to not, you know, be recognized or seen by an abuser. So that has been very rewarding for me. And then I also did one on erasing the stigma of mental health, which we know that is a huge ongoing issue in the African-American community. And one thing I do want to say, the reason why I feel like these workshops and this sort of work is so very important, doing poetry workshops to address these issues, is because in our community, a lot of times we do not get the help, and it's widely and well documented, the challenges and the inequities in the medical community, and how people of African American descent a lot of times are treated and looked at. And so they really don't advocate as strongly for themselves, because they feel like they're not getting what it is that they need, the attention that they need. They're not being taken seriously. So a lot of times, you know, in our community, you have people who you say, oh, they're just a drunk or a drug addict. They're self-medicating. They really do have some sort of issue going on, whether it's trauma or mental illness or a mental condition. And so because they didn't get the help that they needed, now I'm not saying in every case, but I'm saying in a lot of cases, these people are out on the street because they did not get the help that they needed from the medical community. So the expressive art therapy, which is dealing with art, music, poetry, and visual art, allows them the environment to begin to heal and to deal with these various issues that they have. And it's very powerful work. And so I'm just so excited to be a part of it, and I want to continue it in a real and consistent way. So, you know, it's just so important that we recognize what we need from each other. And I think we need more compassion, and I think we need more understanding, and we need more empathy, as Diane was saying. I think that is just such a powerful word. We're not talking about glossing over, but, you know, kind of reaching down into it. And poetry has saved my life. That it allowed me, in a time where I didn't have a voice and I wasn't able to speak, poetry allowed me to have a secret garden, if you will, where I could blossom and express how I really felt. And I was very fearful for many years about the things that happened to me. So to be able to openly talk about them, to me, is a victory in and of itself.
Okay. But definitely I'm so glad I came back and shared your bio, because that was crucial information for anyone that needs to or wants to get to know who Brenda Bunting is. That is a significant part of your journey and what you offer to folks that are going through or know someone who's going through. This is so powerful to have that opportunity to share. I was trying to see if I could have a poem that related to that. Um, let's see if this is it. Yes, this is a poem that it's in direct relation to the message you just shared. And I'll offer it now as a part of my contribution to today's workshop. Well, discussion. This is not a workshop. This is a discussion. This poem is titled My Sister. I wrote it several years ago. I saw you today, my sister, with that soiled towel draped over your bowed head. You sat silently next to your possessions, which fit easily inside the wire-wheeled cart sitting in the aisle of the metro train. I was one of the passengers who navigated past you, careful to avoid eye and body contact. Every day I ride the same train, from my job to my home and back again. Where are you headed? With no home to call your own, which stop is yours? How many others passed up the seat next to you like I did? As I strained not to see your pain, I became filled with feelings of complicity. Am I really straining not to see the reality of how your shopping cart violates my comfort zone? What zone do you call home? What time, place, and space do you claim beyond that space inside me and others that feel overwhelmed, but lost as to what we should do when we see you? Is your home that small space inside each of us that wrenches when we see your wretchedness? If you look into our eyes, would we empathize or despise? Is that why you keep your head bowed, to hide the horror that we could neither stand nor understand? Or would your eyes reveal realities of a peace transcended from a place foreign to us? Your silence splits wide the chasm of sisterhood that should be ours. I know your life is no less significant in the universe than mine. You travel a different path, but we share the same space, the same time. You are my equal in the sense of our humanity. And many care more than we can express that you are caught in the madness we perceive to be your life. 1, 5, $500 can't fix what we fear most. The reality that our biweekly paychecks only slightly remove us from your world in a way that is tenuous at best. I ask you, my sister, did you grow weary of the world, or was it snatched from you? Can you teach me how and where to begin to help bring healing and wholeness, to help find an end to your dilemma and mine? I ask your forgiveness as I sit comfortably 3 rows back and struggle to steady my gaze, struggle to not look away. Forgive me, my sister. Forgive me as I struggle to learn not to persecute the victim, but the crime. Forgive me as I struggle to swallow this lump in my throat that won't let me digest all the garbage that's been heaped on my sister, who's learned to survive a life on the street. So I'm glad I was able to find that. Thank you. Like I said, I wrote that poem many, many years ago and certainly hadn't intended on sharing it today, but it felt right after hearing what you just shared about the incredible work you are doing, the so very significant work that you're doing through your workshops and through your poetry. Thank you again. And
Oh, thank you, Sister Joy. That poem it brought tears to my eyes. It really did. It was amazing. And it made me think about Angela Hill, who was a lady who lived under the bridge. I don't know if you know that story in Southeast, that she just recently passed away. And she had been under that bridge, living there for many years, and they talked about her on the news. And I thought about her, and thank you.
Absolutely. And now that particular poem, and I'll do as I asked you each to do, that poem was definitely a response to a very personal witness that I encountered. This woman who truly, I mean, the poem unfolds telling the story. Like so many others, we shunned her. We tried to distance ourselves from her when she got on the train. Nobody sat at least 3 rows back, you know, nobody sat anywhere near her. And even as I was observing what was happening, I was so filled, and I was feeling so complicitous and guilty and not knowing what I was supposed to feel or do, but I felt that her presence on that train was for a reason. And I ended up writing that poem rather quickly, I might add, telling so that hopefully others could give some thought to what brings individuals to that station in life, and what is our response supposed to be, to the degree that we can figure it out, at least give some thought to it, and not just try to turn and look away and not see what is in front of us, which is so often what we do. So I'm thanking you, Brenda, for the opportunity to share a poem that I don't believe I've shared in over 20 years. Yeah. The poem that I did intend to share, and I'll share it now, is titled This Freedom Thing. This Freedom Thing. And for those that were at the Black History celebration last night that I hosted with my church, Ebenezer AME Church has a poetry ministry that now for the past 18 years I've led. And we hosted our Black History celebration titled Black Family, Black Power. And it was phenomenal. I'm still on cloud 15 from that experience. So I hope for folks who were there that may have heard this, I hope you enjoy it again and are not put off by hearing it a second time. But again, this freedom thing. There are some that have come to know freedom only through ancestors' woeful echoes, those whose chorus of unripened dreams were turned nightmare. Work songs from field, chain, even church, but seldom CEO, sung and clung to for life. Pain birthed melodies from slaves whose souls uttered unlettered words of hope, courage, and resolve. Such was and is our story. It is for them that I lift prayer, for them, they who sift spirit from sorrow while searching the horizons for signs of the familiar. They who bid me even now to sing their song of loss and pain in verse made plain. They say, steal away, steal away. Search out this freedom thing, claim and revere it. Hold it dear, keep it safe, create it when necessary, grow it from whisper to shout song, then hand it down, tender and prideful to the young ones, the young ones. Teach them to make it their own. It is for them that we, all of us, we, the church, the community, we, the Black family, claim and demand with faith-filled hearts and fists raised to glory. It is for them that we proclaim our power despite trial, tribulation, lateness of hour. It is for them that we, through tears, fears, and heartbreak, relentlessly for generations strive, fight to create opportunity, equality, soul affirming dignity. You see, this freedom thing means everything, because without it, nothing means anything. That's why we give up everything to get it, this freedom thing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And as we continue, let's see. I have some comments in the chat as well. Thank you all for that. Now, with regard to the poetry that resonated with our guest, I want to make sure that if there are guests who have a short poem that they can share, and I'm trusting here, when we say a short poem, we're talking about a minute and a half or so, not a 5-minute poem. But if there is someone that can put their name in the chat and they have a poem that addresses the issue of Black family, that's what we want to hear from. But I'm going to cycle back to Seth Washington, because Seth was our first presenter, and there may be some folks online who missed the early part of our program. We'll be looking to see if there are questions, if there are comments in the chat, and if there is a poet who would like to share a poem on the topic of Black family. So we have a couple of things we're looking for, but at this time, I'm welcoming back Seth Washington in hopes that he might have another poem that he can share and contribute to our ongoing discussion on Black family for this Black History celebration. Seth, are you there?
Yes, I am. And I enjoyed your poetry as well, Sister Joy, as well as that of Brenda and Diane. This has really been some excellent food that you all have shared today, and thank you so much. So growing up, music was a part of the household, of course. And also Mom had us in the church choir and taking piano lessons as well. So this piece is entitled Music.
Okay.
Music. The music was my first. Way back when, transistor to my ear. Rock and roll anthems on AM dial. Piano lessons, piano teachers introducing the classics. It's Bach, Beethoven, Joplin, first name Scott. Church choir rehearsals, gospel music left a positive imprint. School band was cool, still got my trumpet, though now it's on display, not so much for play. And there were these two girls around the way, always knowing all the words. My first introduction into the power of the lyric. I mean, every song on the R&B soul album, it was something how they were hyped about it. It's kind of nice reflecting, music.
Okay. Seth Washington. And do you still play piano?
I do not play piano,
Oh,
but you know, the years of being involved with music comes into play now whenever I perform poetry with a band. And so it really informs how I collaborate with them.
okay, okay. And yes, that is something that most musicians, when afforded the opportunity to have musical accompaniment, it's a treat for us as much as it is for the audience. So
Yes, yes.
absolutely. Well,
And
thank
I
you. Yeah.
wanted to say also, Joy, about one of the reasons why I approach poetry in this manner, kind of cataloging the everyday joys. And it relates to something that Brenda said earlier about us recording our history, lest it be forgotten. And we here in a place like Prince George's County, we live in an enclave that I would say is blessed. And similarly to Atlanta and similarly to Dallas, these areas where you have just really blessed communities of African Americans. And but you know, there are so many African Americans still in this country that don't know that places like this exist. And so if we don't do what life coaches sometimes tell us to do, celebrate our wins and capture those aspects also, then we won't have the history to say that, you know, we we were effective also, even as we pursued equality and even as we assisted. There were also those of us who hearkened back to our ancestors in Africa who had perhaps more than any other civilization on earth lived a quality standard of life through many different iterations on the continent, through many different epochs, who understand what living well is. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why we became so effective when we were forced to be enslaved, because we understood a standard of living even more than those who enslaved us understood and still do. And
Absolutely.
so it's important for us to acknowledge that whole aspect of really who we are, that thing that's in our DNA, because again, we actually do know how to live life. And even though the very direct connection of memory of it has been somewhat taken from us because of this last 400-year process that has erased some of that from our active memory, but praise God, it is still in our DNA.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we will forever be the griots. We poets will forever be the griots from the motherland. And the work that we
Yes.
do is essential. The the ties will never be totally severed. So that's why we have I believe an innate capacity to convey culturally what it is that's happening, not just superficially, not just
Mhm.
for there are those that clearly are monetizing the experiences on both sides of the fence. But
Mhm.
when we look at the cultural experience and convey it through poetry, we're doing a mighty work. And
Yes.
I thank each of you for doing just that. I do also want to mention that today's event is being recorded, and to the extent that there are communities that may not know about what's happening in rich communities connected with the arts, such as we have right here in Prince George's County and in Maryland. And this is something that the link can be shared everywhere. We want
Mhm.
the world to know about the richness that we have right here. We want folks to be inspired to pick up a pen and understand that there are many ways to approach poetry. whether you have the luxury of having a room set aside, or whether you have the luxury of having, you know, don't have the 9 to 5 to contend with, or whether you have the opportunity to be inspired by a community of poets that are feeding you culturally or just literarily. This is something that everyone has access to. And by virtue of the creativity that is a part of the human experience. So I'm hoping that after today's event is done, that everyone will just rush to the link and share the link widely, share it so that people can certainly see the experiences of our featured poets today, but also have the opportunity to reflect and see how they might be able to become that griot, maybe first within family, then within their immediate community. But the world is our stage, and we want everyone to embrace and be empowered by, because that's one of the things that I believe poetry provides, opportunities for empowerment. So often, our people, not just our people, but people are waiting for someone to give them permission to do what they already have the ability to do. So I'm imploring that persons who are in the slightest bit inclined to pick up a pen, hey, pick up a pencil so you can erase, because that's the thing about poetry. It rarely lands on the page straight from the brain to the paper in its final format. So, you know, we craft this thing called poetry. We take time to change words and change the sequence of order of lines, and format the poetry in a way that makes sense when it's read by someone other than the author. There's so many nuances that can be explored, and so many approaches to writing poetry. I do want persons to just take one moment. I'm going to step to the workshop arena just for a minute. I promise I won't detour too long. But for those who think that they cannot write a poem, try this. Pick up a pen, get a piece of paper. On the paper, write in a line the numbers 1 through 10. Then say, like, leave a space between each line on the page, 1 through 10 down the page. Then beside each word, first of all, decide you want to write about, whether it's your puppy, whether it's about the loss of a family member, whether it's about the clouds in the sky, whether it's about the beauty of the earth. Start with, what are you going to write about? What do you want to write about? What do you think you want to write about? And we often say what you think you want to write about, because poetry has a life of its own and it will take over. So you start with what you're going to write about. Then you start finding words. And I'm encouraging you to try find 10 words related to that topic. Just 10 words, all you want. So beside each number, write a word. It can be, if you're writing about nature, it could be boulder. If you're writing about family, it could be mother. But whatever it is, write 10 words down the page. Those words are going to guide you, and they become the basis, the foundation for a statement. Now, a statement, you're going to have 10 statements because you started with 10 words. So the statement could be a sentence, it could be a phrase, it could simply be that one word. But by finishing these 10 statements, you have the beginnings, not the poem, you have the beginnings of a poem. So take the time, massage the words, change the words, edit the sequence of the words, edit the sequence of the lines. I guarantee you a poem is in there somewhere. Be in touch. I'm now going to put my email address in the chat. Be in touch. Let me know what you craft using this very simple and rudimentary technique for creating and giving birth to a poem. Take your time. It could be weeks or months before an actual poem is born, but you can start the process right now. Okay, we go back now. I see that we have Janique Mucklebane, who is with us today, and she has put her name in the chat, and I believe she's requesting to share a poem. Janique, are you posting your name in the chat because you would like to share a poem?
Yes, that is correct, Sister Joy. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay, welcome to From a Poet's Point of View. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Janique is a well-established poet in Prince George's County, Maryland, and she has she hosts a series of her own, but today she's going to be sharing a poem, and the title of your poem is?
Pandemic.
Okay. Janique Mucklebane.
I barely see you anymore. When I do, you are headed out the door. Hello, goodbye is all we seem to have time for. I'm up early, you're out late. I hear the door open. I come out of my room, but it's too late. You were already leaving on your way. I barely see you anymore. When I do, you are already headed out the door. Your eyes are red. You smile at me, get into your car, and I watch until an empty street is all I see. Stay at home does not apply to you. People need to eat, essential. The title bestowed upon thee, my firstborn son. You've always been essential to me, long before COVID-19.
Oh, how beautiful, how beautiful. That is very family friendly. That is very much family. Yes, we do have these, our lives have been forever altered by COVID. And that was a beautiful tribute to your son. So
Thank you.
It's a challenging time for all of us though. So absolutely. Thank you, Janique. And I'm going to also ask, since you stepped up, I'm going to offer for you to put your contact information in the chat for folks who would like to be in touch with you. Thank you. See, this is what happens when folks step up and claim what's already theirs. Thank you, Janique. Okay. So I also want to invite, I think he's still with us, is Pablo. Pablo's still with us today. I saw him online. Pablo, are you still here? I don't, maybe he had to leave. Pablo is with the Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council, and he's our programs person. I wanted him to speak briefly about the grants that he referenced in the chat, and I guess he had to exit, but there is, for those that are looking for opportunities to support what it is you do through grants, there is information in the chat. Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council currently has artist fellowship grants for county artists, including literary, which is poetry. We encourage all to apply and contact us for any questions. There's an information session this Tuesday, February the 23rd, and online creative community conversation about these grants on Wednesday, February the 24th. And then the link is there, an Eventbrite link is there as well. Now, for those that are not as familiar with how Zoom works, if you look in the bottom right corner of your chat, you see 3 dots, the ellipses. If you click on that, you'll see a box that comes up that says Save Chat. If you save the chat, then of course you have all of the information saved directly to your computer that has been shared today. So in addition to being able to, of course, have the link that the Arts Council will be posting on Facebook, this chat gives you all of the information from each participant who posted about activities, about contact, about grants, all of the above. So please do save the chat and use it to be in touch so that we can hear from you further. Now, our let's see, our next event for March, and 1 second, is going to feature, I'm going to do this real quick. Our next event is going to be March the 20th. And as it turns out, the young lady that you just heard from, Janique, is going to be one of our featured poets. Neville Adams is also going to be featured, as well as Kim B. Miller, who is the newly appointed Poet Laureate of Prince William County, Virginia. So we are very excited to continue the series. We know that each of you who is with us today has an interest in poetry. We want to hear from you. You have my email in the link, in the chat. Please be in touch. Let us know what you think about our series. This is our 2021 series, which we do once a month on third Saturdays from 1 to 3 p.m. This series is titled, of course, From a Poet's Point of View. And I will be moderating each of these monthly series where we attempt to bring you the best poetry and the best poets. And I think you'll agree that today certainly lived up to that standard and then some. We want to support the poets of Prince George's County, but we also want to make sure that we're serving the community beyond Prince George's County, because with the advent of the virtual world, our poets are being given a global platform, and we are thrilled to be able to do that. So be in touch. If you are a poet, we do have some slots still available for later in the year. Now we do, of course, our next couple of months are already booked, but if you are, or you know, a poet that you believe worthy of a platform of this caliber, please be in touch. poetsisterjoy@aol.com or sisterjoy@pgahc.org, and let us know who you'd like to hear from. We have some wonderful programs coming up, so stay tuned. I'm looking forward to having continued conversations through the entire year. And this is our third year. For those that know, my appointment as the inaugural Poet Laureate was for a 3-year term. So I'm on year 3. We'll see what the future holds. But right now, I'm doing all I can to keep poetry alive, keep it vibrant, keep the community connected through the literary arts. And we want to know what's on the minds of and in the hearts of poets and our community. So thank you all so very much for being a part of today's monthly Black History celebration. And Black family is our theme. Be in touch. Let us know where you're viewing and sharing poetry. The virtual world offers so much these days. So we have to pace ourselves, but we know that poetry is for everyone. I want to thank each of my guests, Seth Washington, Brenda Bunting, and Diane Wilbon Parks. Let's see, we've got a very few minutes left, but if either of the three of you has any last parting words that you would care to help us close out, please step up at this time. Just 30 seconds, 45 seconds for each of you, please.
I'll just say that I'm very happy to be a part of this event of celebrating our history. And thank you so much, Sister Joy. I just think you're exceptional in your commitment and your dedication, and just how accessible you are. That also is very, very important. So I'm so happy to have been featured with Diane and Seth. I enjoyed them immensely, as well as Janique. And as well as your poem. It was amazing. It was all amazing. The energy was wonderful. And thanks to the audience for staying and participating. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Okay, and let's see, Seth or Diane?
Well, I will be brief because you've asked us to be, and I just want to say thank you very, very much for the invitation to be here and to explore this afternoon with all this wonderful poetry in its theme, to read alongside Brenda as well as Seth, and to just hear your magic poetry. It really, and I have to say this, Sister Joy, real quick, that poem also made me tear up. It was your 20-year-old poem. It was amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, and Seth Washington, close us out.
Well, Sister Joy, I just want to thank all of you ladies. Um, when we talk about standard of living, it's through the women. You all know what it is to live well. The household generally, even in amongst the husband and the wife, it's the lady who sets up the house, knowing what is needed for each room. And so I thank you for being such a great caretaker of the room of poetry in our community right now, as it has been said, and for just being a light for all of us to, enjoy this art form even more with through your stewardship. So again, thank you, and it's been a blessing to be a part of this moment with Brenda as well as Diane. Also, very honored, as well as Janique.
Thank you very much. Okay, well then that closes us out. We are concluding the Black History Celebration of Poetry through the Office of the Poet Laureate, which is again our sponsors. Prince George's Arts and Humanities Council is the umbrella under which the Office of the Poet Laureate is positioned. And with today's program was presented in support with the Memorial Library System of Prince George's County and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and the Nora Roberts Foundation. Thank you all so much for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next month. So stay tuned. We'll see you then. In the meanwhile, pick up a pen, keep writing.